Captain Zara Chen stepped through the chrome-plated doors of the Galactic Combat Academy, her boots clicking against polished metal floors with each determined stride. The air tasted of ozone and disappointment, a familiar cocktail she had grown to despise over the past 3 months. "Another human reject," whispered a blue-skinned Vorthan cadet as she passed. His companion, a towering Krax warrior with 4 arms, chuckled like grinding machinery. Zara's jaw tightened. She had heard variations of that phrase every single day since arriving at this prestigious institution. Every species in the galaxy seemed to share one universal truth. Humans were the weakest, slowest, and most pathetic excuse for sentient life that had ever crawled out of their muddy little planet. The corridor stretched endlessly before her, lined with holographic displays showcasing the Academy's greatest champions. Massive Thorgans bench-pressing small asteroids. Nimble Zealothans moving faster than photon bursts. Crystalline Morphians reshaping their bodies at will. Not a single human among them. The training hall doors hissed open, revealing a cavernous space filled with exotic combat equipment designed for a dozen different alien physiologies. Anti-gravity platforms floated overhead, while electromagnetic training dummies sparked with lethal precision. "Ah!" The fragile little Earth dweller returns, boomed a voice that could shatter glass. How delightfully predictable. Instructor Vex'thul emerged from the shadows like a nightmare-given form. Standing 12 feet tall, the Gorlakian's obsidian exoskeleton gleamed under harsh training lights. His 6 muscular arms rippled with power that could crush titanium without effort, while his mandibles clicked in amusement. "Tell me, tiny human," Vex'thul continued, his voice dripping with condescension, "have you finally accepted reality? Have those pitiful little stick arms of yours convinced you to abandon this foolish dream?" Zara squared her shoulders, meeting his burning crimson gaze, without flinching. "Not today, instructor. Not ever." The alien's laughter erupted like a volcanic explosion, echoing through the training hall. Other cadets stopped their exercises to witness what had become daily entertainment. The human girl getting systematically humiliated by the Academy's most feared combat instructor. "Such adorable determination," Vex'thul sneered, flexing all 6 arms in display of overwhelming superiority. "Perhaps today I should demonstrate exactly why your species will never amount to anything more than galactic comedy relief." He gestured toward a rack of training weapons, each one designed to accommodate different alien anatomies. "Choose your implement of inevitable defeat, little Earth creature. Let's provide today's amusement for my other students." Zara approached the weapon rack with deliberate calm, ignoring the snickers and whispered jokes surrounding her. Her fingers traced over various options. Plasma whips favored by Zealothans, gravity hammers preferred by Thorgans, neural disruption staffs wielded by Morphians. She selected a simple titanium rod. "How utterly disappointing," Vex'thul commented, his mandibles spreading in what passed for a grin among his species. "Even your weapon choice screams mediocrity." "Sometimes simple works best," Zara replied, testing the rod's weight and balance. The instructor's 6 arms moved in perfect coordination, each one grasping a different training weapon. Plasma whips, energy blades, neural disruptors, gravity hammers, sonic pulverizers, and a crystalline spear that hummed with deadly frequency. "Observe, pathetic creatures," Vex'thul announced to the gathered crowd, "as I demonstrate why humans should remain in their trees, eating insects and cowering from thunderstorms." The combat circle illuminated around them, its boundaries crackling with energy fields designed to contain even the most destructive training exercises. Spectators pressed closer, eager for their daily dose of human humiliation. Zara entered the circle with measured steps, her titanium rod held in a deceptively casual grip. Years of suppressed rage burned behind her dark eyes, carefully controlled but never extinguished. "Begin whenever your courage manifests," Vex'thul taunted, spinning his weapons with impossible dexterity. "Though I suspect we may be waiting until the heat death of the universe." The first attack came without warning. 6 weapons moved as one, creating a whirlwind of destruction that would have liquefied most carbon-based life forms. Plasma energy seared the air while sonic pulses shattered nearby training equipment. Zara wasn't there. She had moved with liquid grace, sliding between the devastating attacks like water flowing around stones. Her titanium rod deflected a plasma whip, while her body twisted away from the gravity hammer's crushing blow. "Lucky dodge," Vex'thul growled, his confidence flickering for just a moment. "Luck had nothing to do with it," Zara replied, her voice carrying a new edge. The second assault intensified. All 6 arms worked in perfect synchronization, creating an inescapable web of destruction. Energy crackled. Metal screamed. The very air seemed to catch fire. But Zara danced through it all. Her movements defied logic. Where other species relied on raw power or supernatural abilities, she employed something far more dangerous. Pure, refined technique combined with desperate intelligence. The titanium rod became an extension of her will, deflecting attacks with surgical precision while her body flowed like liquid mercury. She wasn't avoiding the weapons. She was reading them, predicting their paths, exploiting the microscopic gaps in Vex'thul's overwhelming offense. "Impossible!" the instructor snarled, increasing his assault's intensity. The watching crowd fell silent. This wasn't supposed to happen. Humans didn't survive encounters with Galactic combat masters. They certainly didn't make it look effortless. Zara's rod connected with the crystalline spear, sending harmonic vibrations up through Vex'thul's arm. His grip faltered for a fraction of a second. She struck the sonic pulverizer's activation switch, causing it to overload in his grasp. "What sorcery is this?" Vex'thul demanded, genuine alarm creeping into his voice. "No sorcery," Zara answered, her breathing still perfectly controlled despite the impossible display of skill. Just good old-fashioned human ingenuity. She had spent months studying every species' combat techniques, memorizing their strengths and weaknesses, learning their tells and habits. While they saw her as entertainment, she had been gathering intelligence. The neural disruptor swept toward her head. Zara ducked low, her rod sweeping up to catch Vex'thul's wrist at precisely the right angle. The weapon spun away, clattering across the training hall floor. 5 weapons remained. The gravity hammer came next, its crushing force enough to flatten a hover car. Zara sidestepped at the last possible instant, allowing momentum to carry the massive weapon past her guard. Her rod found the perfect pressure point on Vex'thul's second arm. Something cracked. The hammer fell silent. For weapons left. "You think your primitive tricks can overcome superior Gorlakian might?" Vex'thul roared, his remaining weapons moving with desperate fury. "I think," Zara said, her voice carrying 3 months of accumulated anger, "that you made one critical mistake." The plasma whips lashed out simultaneously, their energy trails leaving glowing scars in the air. Zara moved between them like a ghost, her rod striking the power coupling on the first whip. It died with a disappointed whine. "You underestimated me." The energy blade screamed toward her torso with lethal precision. Zara twisted away, grabbing Vex'thul's wrist and using his own momentum against him. The blade carved a deep groove in the training hall floor as his third arm went numb. 2 weapons remaining. The instructor's confidence had completely evaporated, replaced by something humans recognized but most aliens never experienced: genuine fear. His remaining plasma whip and sonic pulverizer moved with increasing desperation rather than calculated precision. "This cannot be happening," he whispered, his mandibles clicking frantically. Zara's rod moved like lightning, striking nerve clusters with surgical accuracy. The plasma whip's energy cell overloaded, showering the combat circle with harmless sparks. The sonic pulverizer's frequency generator cracked under precise pressure. No weapons left. Vex'thul stood in the center of the circle, his 6 mighty arms hanging useless at his sides. Nerve strikes had temporarily paralyzed specific muscle groups, leaving him defenseless for the first time in his considerable life. The training hall had fallen completely silent. Every cadet, every instructor, every maintenance drone had stopped to witness the impossible. A human had defeated a Galactic combat master, using nothing but skill, intelligence, and determination. Zara approached the paralyzed giant, her titanium rod resting casually across her shoulders. "You know what the funny thing is, Instructor Vex'thul?" The alien could only stare, his crimson eyes wide with shock and disbelief. "I've been holding back this entire time." She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried throughout the silent hall. Every day, every humiliation, every moment you made me feel worthless. I was studying you, learning your patterns, waiting for the perfect moment to show everyone exactly what this weak little human could accomplish when properly motivated. The paralysis began to wear off, sensation slowly returning to Vex'thul's massive limbs. But the damage to his reputation, his authority, and his species' legendary arrogance would take much longer to heal. The question is, Zara continued, backing away with predatory grace, what happens next? Do you accept that maybe, just maybe, you've been wrong about humans all along? Or do we continue this educational process until you learn some respect? Vex'thul's mandibles clicked uncertainly. Around them, alien cadets whispered in languages spanning half the galaxy, all saying variations of the same impossible phrase. The human had won. The combat circle's energy field flickered and died, its sensors confused by the unprecedented outcome. Emergency medical drones hovered nearby, unsure whether their services would be required. I believe, Zara announced to the assembled crowd, her voice carrying clearly through the massive training hall, that class is dismissed for today. She walked toward the exit with unhurried confidence, leaving behind a legend that would spread throughout the Galactic Combat Academy like wildfire. The weak little human with stick arms had just redefined what it meant to be dangerous. Behind her, Instructor Vex'thul slowly gathered his scattered weapons, his worldview shattered as thoroughly as his teaching reputation. The day's lesson had been learned, though not by the student he had intended to educate. The hunt for revenge was just beginning. Word traveled faster than quantum communication through the Academy's corridors. By evening meal period, every species from the ice-dwelling Karathi to the plasma-based Solarians had heard the same impossible story. Captain Zara Chen, the human everyone dismissed as galactic refuse, had single-handedly dismantled Instructor Vex'thul in open combat. The dining hall buzzed with nervous energy as Zara entered, her meal tray balanced casually in one hand. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Tentacles froze halfway to feeding orifices. Even the cybernetic Nexri paused their data streaming to observe her passage. Is it true? Asked Cadet Krixtar, a young Vorthan whose blue skin had paled to an almost translucent shade. Did you really defeat the Gorlakian monster? Zara settled at an empty table, noting how quickly other cadets had vacated the surrounding area. I wouldn't call Instructor Vex'thul a monster, she replied calmly, stabbing her nutrition cube with deliberate precision. Monsters are usually more competent. A ripple of shocked laughter swept through the dining hall. No one had ever heard an alien combat instructor described so dismissively by a human, least of all the Academy's most feared training officer. But how? Pressed another cadet, this one a serpentine zealothan whose normally rapid movements had slowed to an uncertain crawl. Gorlakians possess 6 times human strength, double reaction speeds, armor-plated exoskeletons, and centuries of combat experience. Zara chewed thoughtfully before answering. They also possess massive egos, predictable attack patterns, and an unfortunate tendency to underestimate opponents they consider beneath their notice. She gestured with her fork toward the assembled crowd. Sound familiar? The observation struck home like a photon torpedo. Every species present had spent months treating humans as evolutionary mistakes, barely worthy of acknowledgement. The implications of Zara's victory were beginning to dawn on even the slowest intellects. Attention, cadets. The hall's communication system crackled to life, carrying the unmistakable authority of Academy Commandant Torgash. All personnel report to Theater 7 immediately for an emergency assembly. This directive includes suspended instructors. Suspended instructors. The phrase sent another wave of whispers through the dining hall. Instructor Vex'thul's defeat had apparently carried consequences beyond mere embarrassment. Theater 7 could accommodate 3,000 beings across 100 different atmospheric requirements. Zara found herself seated in the human section, a sparse collection of chairs occupied by perhaps 24 of her species. They were the Academy's smallest delegation, constantly reminded of their insignificance by the massive alien populations surrounding them. Commandant Torgash emerged from the stage's central platform, his crystalline Morphean form shifting between states of matter as emotions played across his translucent features. The sight of an angry Morphean was enough to make even Gorlakians reconsider their life choices. "We have a problem," the Commandant announced, his voice resonating through multiple frequency ranges to accommodate different species' hearing capabilities. Today's events in Training Hall Alpha 7 have created an unprecedented situation requiring immediate resolution. Holographic displays materialize around the theater, showing combat footage from earlier training sessions. Zara watched herself dancing through Vex'thul's attacks, her movements fluid and precise while the massive instructor flailed with increasing desperation. Instructor Vex'thul has filed an official protest claiming impossible interference. Torgash continued. He alleges that human technology, genetic modifications, or psychic enhancements were employed to artificially augment Cadet Chen's natural abilities. A chorus of alien voices erupted in agreement. Of course the human had cheated. No natural being could defeat superior Gorlakian might through skill alone. The very suggestion defied established galactic hierarchy. Zara stood slowly, her movement cutting through the chaos like a blade. "Permission to address the assembly, Commandant." Torgash's crystalline form shifted toward amber, indicating curiosity mixed with caution. "Permission granted, Cadet Chen. I welcome any investigation into my alleged enhancements," Zara declared, her voice carrying clearly through the theater's acoustics. "Full medical scans, genetic analysis, technological sweeps, psychic evaluations. Test everything you want, as thoroughly as you want." The alien voices quieted, sensing something dangerous in her tone. "But," she continued, letting the word hang in the suddenly still air, "when those tests prove that I accomplished today's victory using nothing but natural human capabilities, I want something in return." Commandant Torgash's form cycled through several colors before settling on a deep purple indicating intense interest. "State your terms, Cadet." "A formal combat challenge against any instructor of this academy's choosing. Full weapons, no restrictions, broadcast throughout the galactic network." Zara's smile held no warmth. "If I win, humans get reassigned from the joke categories into serious combat training. If I lose, my species accepts permanent classification as support personnel only." The theater erupted. Alien voices shouted in dozens of languages, all expressing variations of shock, outrage, and disbelief. The audacity of the proposal staggered even the most progressive minds present. "Impossible!" roared a voice in the Thorjon section. "No human could survive unrestricted combat against elite academy instructors." "Agreed," clicked the Cracks delegation leader. "This suggestion borders on species suicide." "Then accept the challenge." Zara shot back, her voice cutting through the noise like a plasma cutter through tissue paper. "Prove your superiority once and for all. Eliminate the human problem permanently." The argument was flawless in its brutal logic. Every species present had spent generations claiming absolute dominance over humanity. Here was their chance to demonstrate that supremacy beyond any possible doubt. Commandant Torgash raised a crystalline appendage, immediately silencing the debate. "The proposal has merit," he admitted reluctantly. "However, such a challenge would require approval from the Galactic Combat Council itself." "Then get it," Zara replied. "Unless, of course, the mighty galactic community fears what a single human might accomplish with proper motivation." The insult struck home like a guided missile. Questioning alien courage was perhaps the only offense that transcended species barriers, guaranteed to provoke even the most peaceful civilizations into aggressive response. 48 hours, Torgash declared, his form shifting to a decisive red coloration. "Medical evaluations will commence immediately. If no artificial enhancements are detected, the Galactic Combat Council will convene an emergency session to consider your proposal." Zara nodded once, satisfied. Around her, human cadets stared with expressions ranging from admiration to terror. She had just wagered their entire species' future on her ability to defeat beings specifically designed for combat excellence. The theater began emptying as different species filed out through their designated exits. Conversations buzzed with excitement, speculation, and barely concealed bloodlust. The upcoming evaluations would be the most watched medical examinations in galactic history. As Zara prepared to leave, a massive shadow fell across her path. Instructor Vex'thul stood blocking the aisle, His 6 arms crossed in a display of barely controlled fury. The paralysis had worn off completely, but his wounded pride would take much longer to heal. "You think yourself clever, little human," he growled, mandibles clicking with agitation. "You believe today's lucky performance grants you some measure of respect." Zara met his burning gaze without flinching. "I think today's demonstration revealed exactly what humans can accomplish when we stop pretending to be weak." "Arrogance," Vex'thul spat. "Your species possesses no natural advantages. No enhanced strength, speed, durability, or sensory capability. You are biological mediocrity, given barely sentient form." "You're absolutely right," Zara agreed pleasantly. "We lack every single advantage you mentioned." The instructor's mandibles spread in triumph. "Finally, the humans showed appropriate humility. But we have something else," Zara continued, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried deadly menace. "Something your species and every other superior civilization in this galaxy has forgotten in your rush toward genetic perfection." "And what would that be, weak little Earth creature?" Zara's smile could have frozen plasma. "Desperation. Pure, refined, concentrated desperation born from centuries of being told we don't belong in the same universe as our betters." She stepped closer, forcing the massive alien to look down at her insignificant form. "Do you have any idea what desperate humans are capable of, Instructor Vex'thul?" The Gorlakian's confidence flickered. Something in her tone suggested knowledge he did want to acquire firsthand. "You're about to find out," Zara promised, brushing past his imposing bulk like he was nothing more than an inconvenient obstacle. Behind her, Instructor Vex'thul stood frozen in the empty theater, suddenly understanding that today's humiliation had been merely the opening movement in a symphony of revenge that would redefine the galaxy's understanding of human potential. The medical evaluations would begin in 6 hours. The results would either vindicate humanity's hidden strength or condemn them to permanent second-class status throughout the known universe. Either way, Zara Chen was ready for war.